Well, it's an article from AlanBWest.com. I've heard this guy in the past, or at least read some of his articles, I should say. It's been a while since I've actually seen his name come up, but he does have a really good article I'm not finding anywhere else about, the supposed recovery. Barack Obama leaves with, 5 or so percent unemployment. Everything's great. But I already did a video before Obama left in which his right-hand man, economic advisor in the White House, allegedly, came out and said 95% of these job numbers we've been giving out are pretty much bogus because they're just part-time or people who've given up, working, looking for work, something like that. So he said it. It's not me. It's not some supposed expert somewhere else that's just commenting about it. This is somebody in the inner circle, okay? That was that video. So if we're in an economic recovery, as in the recovery's already done with, we're good to go, you would not think that handouts, EBT, handouts, welfare, etc., the cost on our nation for that would be higher than, say, the defense budget or something like that. Never, pretty much, you could say, is that normal. And according to Alan B. West at alanbwest.com, Mr. Barack Hussein, the Christian, supposedly, Barack, again, Hussein, Obama, Christian, has done so. So it says, you can always assess a person's priorities based on how and where they spend their money. In the realm of politics, budgets and spending are clear evidence of what is important to the politician. The preamble of our Constitution clearly lays down the missions and priorities of our federal government. It states the following: we, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our prosperity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. It says, notice it says nothing about establishing social justice. And I'm quite sure sanctuary cities that harbor criminal illegal aliens don't ensure domestic tranquility. Sadly, something Kate Steinle encountered. But I want to draw your attention to these words: provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare. There's a huge difference in these two phrases based upon the verbs provide and promote. The verb provide is active, while the verb promote is passive. So in other words, these two words, a very important aspect of our federal government is it actively, in other words, a very important aspect of our federal government is it actively seeks to provide for our defense, our security. At the same time, the federal government is supposed to promote our general welfare. In essence, allow us to pursue our happiness. But somehow these words have been juxtaposed, and for the last 8 years, we've had a federal government under progressive socialist control that sought to provide the general welfare while just promoting our common defense. A big difference when it comes to policies and spending. And as reported by the Venerable Terrence Jeffrey at cnsnews.com, he says, Barack Obama was the first president of the United States to spend more on means-tested entitlements, aka welfare, than on national defense, according to data published by his own Office of Management and Budget. Historical tables that the OMB posted on the Obama White House website include annual totals for both national defense spending and means tested entitlement spending going back to fiscal year 1962, or as Lindsey Williams would call it, 1962, which is 3 years before President Lyndon Johnson signed legislation creating the Medicaid program, a means-tested entitlement that, together with the Children's Health Insurance Program, enrolled 74.4 million beneficiaries as of November 2016. In every year from fiscal 1962 through 2014, the total national defense spending exceeded means-tested entitlement spending. In the year 62, for example, the federal government spent more than 12 times as much money on national defense as it did on means-tested entitlements. And that was about $52 billion versus $4.3 billion. However, national defense spending peaked in 2011 when it hit $705 billion, approximately, dollars. By contrast, means-tested entitlement spending has increased each year since 2012. And finally, in fiscal 2015, it exceeded national defense spending for the first time. The fiscal 2016 numbers published on the OMB's historical tables are estimates, but they show means-tested entitlements exceeding national defense spending, which is now $709.6 billion versus $604 billion. Now, of course, the progressive socialist left will come back with the typical retort of uncaring conservatives, which isn't the case. The difference is conservatives believe we should have a safety net, not a freaking hammock. Under Barack Obama, we saw an incredible increase in American poverty, food stamp enrollment, and an expansion of Medicaid, which was meant to cover folks under the poverty line. There was something I was going to say about this. Give me 1 second. I remember now. And I did a video on this, of course. There's a lot of things I say or think and realize I've done a video on that. Oh yeah, I've done a video on that too. It's comes natural now for me to just say that. But I was doing a video. This was many, many months ago. I'm thinking sometime in 2016 I mentioned this because that's when I saw it. That one of the states, I don't remember if it was Michigan or Wisconsin or something, they put into place, if you want government handouts, welfare, we now need you to volunteer your time to something extremely simple. Not talking about going outside in the sweltering heat and cleaning up trash. No. Very minor services that you need to volunteer. Essentially, you're volunteering because you're not getting paid, but your pay essentially is going to be the benefits, the welfare. And it was something ridiculous like a few, maybe 6 hours or something per month. Okay? Few hours per month, I think, was what you needed to volunteer. Easy work in order to get your welfare benefits from this particular state. And they said when it kicked in, okay, starting such and such month, 2-3 months from now, the first of the month, this rule kicks into place, this law. And out of like 10 or 12,000 people that were getting handouts, when that law kicked in, somewhere around 2,000 people decided, I'll go ahead and work my 6 hours because I really need these benefits. And if it was 10,000, that means 8,000 decided, I don't want to do this. The handouts aren't worth it. Which means what? The handouts were given to them for free for reasons they never should have gotten them for in the first place. If you're not willing to do minor, potentially, like I think they talk about office work, filing stuff, basic, easy stuff anybody could do. What does that tell us? The gravy train is what people want. And when you take it away, not a peep from them, actually. Not even a peep from these people. Just, I don't think I want to work for 6 hours in an entire month to get these benefits. I'll just forget about it. Only 2,000 said, I really need it. I'm willing to do it. That is an unprecedented amount of people. That's essentially 80% of the people saying, I was getting this for free and I really didn't need it. I don't feel like working 6 hours a month. You can have it back. 80% of the recipients decided I don't want this. 20% decided I do need this, so I'm going to have to work. That's what the law says and I need it. Isn't that amazing? Back to the article. Now, never forget that during the Obama reign, America went from 10.67 trillion to 20 trillion in debt. And what did we get? We have more Americans dependent on government and its welfare nanny state. We have a military that's been decimated and depleted to the point where aviation maintenance crews are scouring museums and boneyards for spare parts. We don't have adequate carrier coverage in the Persian Gulf. We're driving our own men and women in uniform into the ground due to incessant combat tours of duty. No, we don't need to police the world, but we need to have a deterrent capability and capacity to provide security and be able to engage and defeat the enemy on the ground when called upon. Perhaps we need an honest media that assesses the Obama era and enables the American public to see what the starting point is for the incoming Trump administration. How many times were we forced to hear, quote, I inherited the worst economic situation, or I inherited this mess? Why won't the mainstream liberal progressive media be honest and tell our people the truth about where this nation stands when it comes to economic growth? It's the worst recovery post-World War II, and he's the first president to not achieve 3% GDP growth. And he has had, by the way, 8 years to do it. Combine that with the deplorable situation for our national security and military forces, and all you can do is shake your head. Instead, we have a nationwide women's march about voting rights and killing babies, all affirming the priorities of the progressive left. Can we have a fiscally responsible Department of Defense? Absolutely. We learned that Obama Department of Defense suppressed a report of $125 billion of wasteful civilian bureaucratic spending. See, the dirty little secret Obama didn't want anyone to know was that sequestration gutted our frontline forces. However, the defense bureaucracy didn't suffer at all, nor did the broken defense acquisition system. The sad reality is there are those inside the Washington, D.C. Beltway who don't comprehend every taxpayer dollar sent to the federal government is not equal. There must be spending priorities, and these priorities should be aligned with the constitutional duties of the federal government. If one pursues Article 1 of our Constitution, the majority of the congressional responsibilities and enumerated powers are defense-related, providing for the common defense. However, the statists and progressive socialists have taken the simple phrase general welfare to create an apparatus where the government gives from cradle to grave, well, at least to those who are allowed to be in the cradle. They have perverted Jefferson's words and no longer believe the American people have the right to pursuit of happiness. The prevailing sentiment is that government must guarantee happiness, resulting in exploding deficits and higher debt. We need zero-based budgeting, and let's start in the Pentagon to ensure we are providing for the common defense, but in a fiscally responsible manner. We need no longer the baseline budgeting system that allows the federal government to increase spending every year and maintain wasteful programs. With Barack Obama gone, perhaps we can get back to empowering Americans economically and securing them here and abroad. Obama's mantra was to economically enslave more Americans to his collective progressive socialist dream of dependency, and in the end, we found ourselves being killed by our enemies on our streets. Farewell, Obama. We will now restore our constitutional republic to provide for the common defense and promote the general welfare. And we will once again secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our prosperity for future generations. Can you imagine that kind of money being spent on essentially welfare programs? Did you even know it was that bad? That it's higher now than the defense budget, and the defense budget seemed to be keep creeping up almost every year. We're going to have defense budget cuts, and then all of a sudden they'd slip in another bill, add 35, 40 billion dollars in there, Again, you get rid of this pork and this fat. Get rid of this welfare. Give it to the only the real needy. It's so easy for people to just get this. And if that example I gave you earlier, about 10,000 people or so that was on this program, welfare program in whatever state it was, I don't remember now, and only 2,000 showed up after they said you need to volunteer 6 hours a month. And it may be less than that, I don't remember. I think it was 6 hours. That just goes to show you that 20% of what's out there really need it, 80% don't. Which would mean out of $700 billion, maybe, just maybe, 80% of it is fluff and people sucking off the government teat, and you and I, the taxpayer, the middle class taxpayer, who always gets stuck with the bill. Hopefully Trump is going to continue cleaning house and deal with some of this stuff. Because speaking of, hey, they left me with this as I came into office. Boy, oh boy, did they leave Trump with a bunch of horse crap that he's now going to have to deal with. Take care.